Hello and welcome. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. It's just after 9 p.m. in New Delhi, 4:30 in the afternoon in London, and 11:30 in the morning in Washington, D.C. And you're watching News Night on DD India, your primetime destination for news and analysis. It's good to see you again this Wednesday evening. Right, on the show tonight, I'm sure you all have heard of yoga and Ayurveda. Now, yoga and Ayurveda belong to an ancient Indian school of philosophy. Today, traditional Indian medicine is on the cusp of revival. This morning, Prime Minister Narendra Modi showcased the best of traditional Indian medicine at an investor summit in Gujarat. He hoped for an Indian startup in traditional Indian medicine to turn unicorn. Now, if you want to check out Ayurveda treatment in India, well, there is good news coming your way because Prime Minister Modi made a policy announcement at the Investor Summit. He says India will introduce a new category of visa for foreign nationals wanting to undergo treatment in traditional medicine. We'll get you more on that. Also on the show, we preview UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's visit to India. He lands in Gujarat Thursday morning and will hold talks with PM Modi in New Delhi on Friday. Now, trade and investment will be high on the agenda. Both sides will seek to bridge the gap or differences on a potential free trade agreement between India and the UK. Prime Ministers Modi and Johnson had met in person late last year on the margins of COP26 in Glasgow. They also held a virtual summit in the month of May last year. Plus news and updates from India and the world, all that and much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines. Prime Minister Modi jointly inaugurates a Global Ayush Investment and Innovation Summit at Gandhinagar with WHO DG Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus and Mauritius P.M. Pravind Jugnauth. Says possibilities of investment and innovation in the field of traditional medicines are limitless.
भारत एक विशेष आयुष वीजा कैटेगरी शुरू करने जा रही है.
Prime Minister Modi says Heal in India can become a big brand of this decade. Says India will introduce a new category of visa named after Ayush for foreigners wanting to experience or benefit from traditional Indian medicine. PM Modi holds a bilateral meeting with Mauritius P.M. Pravind Jugnauth at Gandhinagar following the inauguration of the Global Ayush Summit. Fighting rages on in the Donbas region of Ukraine. Russia intensifies attack in eastern Ukraine, including Mariupol, after a Tuesday deadline to surrender expires. UNHRC says over 5 million people fled Ukraine since Russian attack and 12 million internally displaced. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to pay a 2-day visit to India from Thursday. It was his maiden visit to India as the UK Prime Minister. He will hold talks with PM Modi in New Delhi on Friday. And sporadic violence reported from Sri Lanka amid curfew in the southwestern region of Rambukana. The country faces a major political, economic and health crisis in its history. 1 dead as police fire live ammunition to scatter protesters. Alright, let me dive straight into our cover story. Now, PM Modi on Wednesday inaugurated a Global Ayush Investment and Innovation Summit at Mahatma Mander at Gandhinagar. Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth of Mauritius and World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus were present on the occasion. The summit aims to uncover investment potential and give a fillip to innovation, research and development, startup ecosystem and the wellness industry. An Ayush Export Promotion Council was launched on the occasion. in collaboration with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry as well as the Industry Chamber, FICCI. Several MOUs with various countries in the field of academia and research in traditional medicine were exchanged, and ICT initiatives under the Ayush Ministry launched as well.
With the traditional lighting of lamp, Prime Minister Narendra Modi jointly inaugurated the Global Ayush Investment and Innovation Summit in Gandhinagar with WHO DG Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus and PM of Mauritius Pravind Jugnauth. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the time was ripe to boost innovation and investment in Ayush sector. The summit marks the beginning of this effort.
इनोवेशन और इन्वेस्टमेंट किसी भी क्षेत्र का सामर्थ्य कई गुना बढ़ा देता है। अब समय आ गया है कि आयुष क्षेत्र में भी इन्वेस्टमेंट को ज्यादा से ज्यादा बढ़ाए जाए। आज का ये अवसर, ये समिट, इसकी एक शानदार शुरुआत है।
Several MOUs with various countries in the field of academia and research in traditional medicine were also exchanged in the presence of Prime Minister Modi, WHO Chief and Prime Minister of Mauritius. The first MOU was exchanged between two institutions in India and Argentina
for an MOU in the field of the establishment of an academic collaboration in Ayurveda.
The second MOU was a tripartite agreement between All India Institute of Ayurveda, University of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil and Brazilian Academic Consortium for another academic collaboration in Ayurveda.
For integrated health, Brazil.
Another MOU between India and Canada,
Tanuja Manoj Nesri, Director AIIA, Director
Mexico and India
from UANL, Mexico,
as well as India and Philippines for cooperation in the field of Ayurveda were also exchanged. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also launched the Ayush Export Promotion Council in the Ayush sector.
Export Promotion Council in collaboration with the Ministry of Commerce and Industries and FICCI. The market size for Ayush streams, including Ayurveda, Yoga and Naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, Sovarigpa and Homeopathy, has crossed over 18.2 billion US dollars. The Ayush Excel will add to this growth by facilitating ease of doing business.
ICT initiatives by the Ayush Ministry including Ayush Innovative Hub, Ayush Next, Ayush Soft and Ayush GIS were also digitally launched by Prime Minister.
The Ayush Information Hub offers authentic information under various categories such as education policy, drug policy, schemes.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also announced special initiatives to boost global exchange of Ayush products, innovation as well as knowledge in the field of traditional medicine. An Ayush visa is one such initiative that will boost medical tourism in the Ayush sector. Prime Minister Modi also announced the setting up of Ayush parks across the country.
भारत एक विशेष आयुष वीजा कैटेगरी शुरू करने जा रही है। इससे लोगों को आयुष चिकित्सा के लिए भारत आने जाने में सहूलियत होगी। आज एक और घोषणा मैं आपके बीच कर रहा हूं। देश भर में आयुर प्रोडक्ट्स के प्रचार प्रसार के लिए, रिसर्च और मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को बढ़ावा देने के लिए हमारी सरकार आयुष पार्क, आयुष मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का नेटवर्क विकसित करेगी।
To promote Ayush amongst the younger generation, Prime Minister released a comic book with Professor Ayushman as the central character to arouse curiosity and interest among children about traditional medicine. He also conferred awards to startups excelling in the field of Ayush products in 3 categories. The awards were given as part of a challenge aimed at encouraging innovation in Ayurveda. The 3-day summit brings together India's key startups, entrepreneurs, investors, policymakers and other national and international stakeholders with the aim to make India the global Ayush destination for entrepreneurship. Investment worth 5,000 crore rupees is expected to come to India by the virtue of the summit. With Munmun Bhattacharya, Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, WHO chief commended the Indian Prime Minister and government for harnessing the power of innovation in public health. WHO DG Dr. Ghebreyesus praised the Ayush Ministry for fostering a spirit of collection of data for research in traditional medicine. Noting the rising global demand and investment in the Ayush products, he said the whole world is coming to India and India is going to the whole world via the Ayush movement. Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth praised India and Gujarat alike for their contribution to the field of traditional medicine. He noted India's support to the healthcare sphere in his country as well as a common ancestry that his country shares with India. He underlined the importance given to Ayurveda in Mauritius.
The Ayush sector is also growing significantly by 17% per year since 2014. In fact, Ayush industry is projected to reach $23 billion by the end of this year. It's easy to see why this fast-moving industry, which spans so many areas, dietary, well-being and pharmaceutical, just to name a few, is attracting an array of investment interests. Through the Ayush sector, India will go to the whole world and the whole world will come to India. Long-term strategic investments along with government commitment are needed to support the innovation ecosystem for health in general and traditional medicine in particular. Second, for innovators, industry and governments to develop traditional medicines in a sustainable, environmentally sensitive and equitable manner. And third, when bringing traditional medicines to market, we must make sure that the communities that passed on this knowledge and nurtured these traditional products also benefit from their development, including by sharing the fruits of intellectual property.
The knowledge of traditional medicine, treatments and practices must not only be respected, but must also be preserved and promoted. The initiation of this project by Shri Modi ji translates into reality his vision to offer to the world a new way of healing the suffering of people. For Shri Modi ji, the whole world is a family, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. And it is proposed to set up a dedicated Ayush hospital in Mauritius, which is bound to become a center of excellence in the future. Mauritius is also very grateful for the donation of 10 tons of Ayurvedic medicine by the government of India during the COVID-19 first lockdown in May 2020.
Right, I want to break it all down for you so that you have a better understanding, appreciation of ancient Indian wisdom and philosophy. So, first things first, what is traditional Indian medicine? It comprises Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani and Yoga. Now, if you're wondering what Ayush is all about, well, Ayush is an acronym for Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha and Homeopathy. It stands for Traditional Systems of Healthcare and Healing, which also includes Naturopathy and Sowa Rigpa. Next up, some information about the Ministry of Ayush. The Ministry of Ayush was set up on 9th November 2014. It seeks to revive the knowledge of ancient Indian systems of medicine. Next up, let me now talk a bit about Ayurveda itself. Now, Ayurveda is formed from two words, Ayu and Veda. Now, Ayu means life and Veda means knowledge or science. Now, Ayurveda is a science of life and is the most traditional approach of healing which bridges a healthy balance between body, mind or soul. And now to the origin of Ayurveda. It's an ancient healthcare system. It uses herbs that were originally described in the Vedas. Next, let me come to yoga now. It's a discipline that dates back thousands of years. It's regarded as one of the best practices known to calm the inner self. And now to Siddha. Yeah, that's the yoga for you, the graphic on yoga. And now to Siddha. Siddha is an old medicinal system that originated in Tamil Nadu state of India. It's derived from a Tamil word Siddhi, which means achievement or perfection. And now a quick primer on Sowa Rigpa. Now Sowa Rigpa means knowledge of healing. It derives its meaning from the Bhoti language. It is popular in the Himalayan societies in India, extending from in Ladakh in the north and to Arunachal Pradesh in the east. Next up, Unani. Now Unani is a system of medicine that was blended with India's tradition. It originated in Greece around 2500 years ago. And now to some news you can use. Let me start with the benefits of traditional medicine. For instance, put turmeric in hot milk to boost your immunity. You can try these easy home remedies too. For instance, inhale steam with mint leaves if you have a dry cough. Also, take powdered clove with honey to beat sore throat. But that's not all. Try these simple measures as well. For instance, drink warm water and practice yoga daily as much as you can. Not only will you lose weight and increase your metabolism, you will also generally feel good. Try it. You'll thank me for that. Right, moving on, it's time now for our In Focus segment in which we are discussing about traditional medicine made in India for the world. Joining me are two guests, Rajiv Vasudevan, MD and CEO, Ayurved Hospitals and Chair CII Ayush Forum, and Pradeep Multani, Co-Chair FICCI Ayush Committee and Chairperson Multani Pharmaceuticals. Gentlemen, welcome to News Night. Good to have you on this discussion. Mr. Multani, if I can start with you, could you give our viewers an industry perspective on the pharmaceutical industry itself? How big is the size and what the potential for this industry going forward?
You see, fortunately for us, we have a real dynamic and outstanding Prime Minister in Honorable Mr. Narendra Modi ji, and he is the first Prime Minister who has fully understood the strength of the traditional Indian system of medicine, Ayurveda, Unani, the Ayush sector.
Right.
We see the sort of encouragement and promotion which is giving to the Ayush sector was very much needed, because in the past we were treated like the alternative system, and rightly now we are being looked upon as the traditional and the primary system of medicine, which we actually are.
Indeed.
Now, the size of the Ayush sector before 2014 was USD 3 billion, and today it has crossed USD 18 billion. And now with the sort of proactive, promotion of the Ayush sector, and when we look at the traditional Chinese medicine, which is in every corner of the world,
right,
we strongly feel our Ayush sector is definitely much superior to that system. And with the support of our government, I think sky is the limit at which we can go and reach and achieve the growth figures.
Absolutely. Mr. Vasudevan, coming to you now, since you also run a chain of Ayurved hospitals as well, and you're also the chair of the CII Ayush Forum, I want to ask you, how popular is traditional Indian medicine, i.e. Ayurveda, number one, and number two, do you think COVID pandemic has given a fillip or aroused interest in traditional medicine?
Thank you for that question, and two parts to that question that you asked. And the first part, that Ayurveda predominantly, I think, occupies mind space today in this country, as yoga does, as a serious system of medicine. You began with, you introduced Ayurveda and the remaining systems of medicine with an Ayurveda 101, which was an excellent introduction to the lay public. But when the WHO DG says that India will heal the world and the world will come to India for healing, right? That particular premise is not idle.
Right.
He's made it for one very simple reason. It goes beyond kitchen remedies. It goes beyond grandma's remedies to serious medical care. And today, in the context of the pandemic which happened, the world quite understood that there are limitations to what different systems of medicine can do, and what potentially a system of medicine which is proven over millennia can do. So that is the relevance today, that Ayurveda, which is approved by medical insurance, which is approved by most of them. Today, an MOU was signed between the armed forces, whereby 37 hospitals would be set up in different defense command hospitals and different clinics. Similarly, in other areas. So the mainstreaming of Ayurveda system of medicine is very well on its way. To the second point on COVID and how it has contributed, definitely there has been a tremendous upsurge when people looked at going beyond disease to improving immunity. And in that context, they found that Ayurveda and yoga and other Ayush systems can play a huge role. So what has happened is some surveys that were done during this particular pandemic phase by the ministry shows that almost 87% of households were using Ayush products in one way or the other. So it would be pertinent to say that this pandemic is in one sense moved the graph in favor of Ayurveda and other Indian systems of health into the mainstream public imagination.
Indeed. Mr. Multani, I quite like the way Mr. Vasudevan put it. Traditional Indian medicine or Ayurveda has gone mainstream, and he explains why. But I want to ask you a related question or issue. In your estimation, do you think there is still some skepticism associated with Ayurveda or myths associated with Ayurveda, the perception problem in a sense? So how do you address it as an industry, as a pharmaceutical company, as a hospital, as a practitioner? Do you sort of put more information out there for the people to study and understand? Do you raise awareness, or do you promote or project visible, tangible benefits? For instance, the Kenyan leader's daughter regained eyesight through Ayurveda, and that's a potential, advertisement to popularize Ayurveda going forward as well.
You see, like I said, fortunately now the government is supporting the Ayush system. That is the most important thing.
Right.
Because previously 97% of the budget was taken by the allopathic sector. And now finally when they are giving due recognition to the Ayush sector, and also when a very, very popular and dynamic Prime Minister starts promoting the system, it is a wonderful thing to happen for the system. Apart from that, you see, what is very important is for Ayush industry and the government also to bring to the knowledge of the world that there are Ayush companies who have got WHO GMP certified plants. They have got government approved Ministry of Ayush, CDSCO, NABL accredited drug testing laboratories. And since the Ayush products are also being sold as nutraceuticals, they have food testing laboratories which are also NABL accredited and FSSAI approved. So the highest standards which can be thought of are there in our Ayush sector. So in no way is the Ayush sector less than the allopathic system. And like my colleague, Mr. Rajiv Vasudevan rightly said, 87% of the Indian population firmly believes in the Ayush system of traditional medicine. Now, unfortunately, what happens is that any one incident in the Ayush sector is blown out of proportion. And if you look, I will not like to comment on the other system.
Sure.
Every system has its strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
Now, the Ayush system, unfortunately, has only strengths, and this is the way forward to get universal healthcare for India. We have seen during COVID-19 how the Western countries like America, England, the European Union, which are supposedly having the best state-of-the-art allopathic system of medicine, how they could not cope up with the problems. Whereas India, with its traditional system of medicine, because that was the time when the boom took place, when every household practically was using the Ayush system, they boosted the immunity, and that inner self became strong. And we saw that compared to the population of India, the number of deaths that took place, the number of hospitalizations that took place were very, very few in percentage terms. So undoubtedly, what is happening in Gujarat today was long overdue, and we really express our gratitude and thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister for promoting the system, because this will be what is needed by the whole world.
Indeed. Mr. Vasudevan, I want to understand something from you now. Since you run a chain of Ayurveda hospitals, I want to understand the patient profile, if you can share with our viewers, who actually walks in for Ayurveda treatment, number one, and number two, what kind of treatment do you give to your patients for whatever the treatment they would ask for? Yeah.
So, very good question. If you look at conventional healthcare in hospitals, you're reminded of ambulances with the light turning and, surgery, emergencies, etc. In contrast, if you were to really go into the data, what you'll find that 2/3 of healthcare demand arises from chronic conditions, non-communicable diseases, as well as rehabilitation. There is pre-emergency and post-emergency. That's why 2/3 of the demand is. And Ayurveda addresses precisely that sweet spot, which is why there is a huge gap overseas. In India today, so you take diseases like Parkinsonism, you take stroke rehabilitation, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, skin conditions, gynec conditions. So anything which is systemic, non-communicable, Ayurveda can do a fantastic job. So what happens is, when I have to look at elective surgery, right, it is not an emergency surgery. If I'm on steroids, if I'm on painkillers, right, and if I'm looking at a way out of that, you harness the body's ability by, you talked about balance in an earlier, statement that you made. What Ayurveda does is, in a personalized way, detoxifies at a whole person level, personalized level, right? And then enables the body to restore homeostasis. So this approach is achieved through a personalized prescription of diet, lifestyle, herbal medicines, and panchakarma. When I say panchakarma, let me qualify, because again, it's misunderstood in many parts of India. Panchakarma are the 5 cleansing, deep system, whole system cleansing procedures. But it is preceded by the purva karmas. So you prepare the body for detox. So in India, we have perhaps the world's best, most comprehensive, personalized detox methodology. In achieving the detox in a personalized way, we are able to reverse disease. The other very important part, apart from reversing the conditions for disease, we are able to promote health. So the whole area of Rasayana Chikitsa and geriatric care, etc., becomes extremely important, because today India is an aging population, and we bring in also promotive health through other sets of medicines and therapies. And yoga, of course, comes in a very strong way to complement.
Absolutely. Mr. Multani, coming to you now, Prime Minister Modi expressed a desire, a wish to see an Indian startup in this particular space to turn unicorn in the near future. And he spoke about how the size of the market in terms of exports was $3 billion in 2014. Now it's grown in the last 7-8 years to in excess of $18 billion. And now, when can India see a unicorn startup, as the PM wished? And what can the industry and the government together do to push policies or other incentives to make that dream become a reality?
You see, what we are seeing in Gujarat today, and whatever is happening today, one can appreciate this is going all around the world.
Right.
Ayush visas, the sort of investment potential, 100% investment is permitted in the Ayush sector. Now, this sort of promotion and the sort of encouragement which is being given to the Ayush sector, I'm sure the quality, which is already very good, will be further improved with the sort of incentives and promotion which is being given. Industry will rise to the occasion. We've got wonderful qualified professionals, and companies, whether in industry or we are talking about our practitioners. I'm sure some unicorn, not one unicorn, many unicorns will come in the Ayush sector very soon. I can't say in 6 months or 1 year, but yes, in the near future, we'll definitely be seeing that Ayush sector will be in every corner of the world, and naturally when it expands, we will have unicorns coming up.
All right, on that optimistic note, may I thank both my guests, Mr. Pradeep Multani and Mr. Rajiv Vasudevan, for sharing your thoughts with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you. Appreciate it. Right, and staying with this story, a Gujarat Connect seems to be the flavor of the season. Now, visitors such as WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus and PM Pravind Jugnauth of Mauritius spoke Gujarati on several occasions. They expressed their gratitude for the hospitality extended to them, and PM Modi reciprocated their sentiments in a unique way. Find out how in the next report.
Kemcho Bada Majama Gujarati goes global, as does India's traditional medicine or Ayush, that stands for Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha and Homeopathy. DG of WHO, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, a special guest, broke into Gujarati on several occasions, reiterating his love for the state.
Mahatma Gandhi ni આ ભૂમિમાં આવીને ખુશી છે.
Dr. Ghebreyesus has a special connection with India as well as India's traditional medicine.
My Indian teachers taught me well also about traditional medicine, and I am very grateful to them. By the way, I also grew up watching Bollywood films, and I understand that the Swiss Alps are a favorite destination for Bollywood fans. And the first film which I remember and which probably affected me like the Indian teachers of mine were Mamma India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi reciprocated these sentiments as well, narrating Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus' love for India and his regard for his Indian teachers and his affection for Gujarat. Prime Minister Narendra Modi even gave him a Gujarati name, Tulsi Bhai.
मैं आज महात्मा गांधी की इस पवित्र भूमि पर मेरे इस परम मित्र को गुजराती के नाते तुलसी भाई और जब गुजराती हैं तो बिना भाई के बात नहीं चलती है और इसलिए आपका जो गुजरात के प्रति लगाव बना है, हर बार कुछ न कुछ गुजराती बोलने का आपका प्रयास रहा है, आपको जिन गुरुजनों ने शिक्षा दी है उनके प्रति आप लगातार श्रद्धा भाव व्यक्त करते रहे हैं। इस महात्मा मंदिर की पवित्र धरती से मुझे आपको तुलसी भाई कह करके पुकारने में विशेष आनंद हो रहा है।
And it wasn't just the Director General of WHO, Prime Minister of Mauritius, Pravind Jugnauth, also chose to speak in Gujarati, even sharing his love for the Gujarati cuisine.
ગુજરાત ની મારી મુલાકાત અદ્ભુત રહી. ગુજરાતનું પ્રસિદ્ધ ભોજન અને ઉમળકા ભર્યો સત્કાર માનીને મને ઘણો આનંદ થયો.
Pravind Jugnauth brought to life the paraphrased idiom, when in Gujarat, do as the Gujaratis do, speaking in the local flavor.
આ મારી ગુજરાત રાજ્યની પહેલી મુલાકાત છે. આને પ્રધાનમંત્રી શ્રી નરેન્દ્ર મોદી ને નામ ગૃહ રાજ્યમાં આવીને મને ઘણો આનંદ થયો છે.
Kem Cho seems to be the greeting of the season, with Prime Minister Boris Johnson heading to Gujarat on Thursday. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Prime Minister Modi narrated an incident, a success story of Ayurveda, when former Prime Minister of Kenya, Raila Odinga's daughter Rosemary, who regained her eyesight after Ayush treatment. Take a listen.
जब हम आयुर्वेद की बात कर रहे हैं तो मैं आज आपको एक बड़ी अहम जानकारी देना चाहता हूं। मैं अपने एक मित्र और केन्या के पूर्व राष्ट्रपति राइला ओडिंगो जी के और उनकी बेटी रोजमेरी का भी जिक्र करना चाहता हूं। Rosemary, are you here? Yes, she's there. Rosemary, welcome to Gujarat. रोजमेरी की घटना बड़ी रोचक है, मैं जरूर आपको कहना चाहूंगा.
Rosemary's story is indeed heartrending. She was among the audience at the Global Investment and Innovation Summit in Gandhinagar. Prime Minister Narendra Modi introduced her as the gathering gave her a thunderous applause. Rosemary lost her vision due to a surgery to remove a tumor in 2017. Rosemary's father, Raila Odinga, a former Kenya president, went to several countries and world-renowned hospitals, but her eyesight couldn't be restored. They breathed a sigh of relief on reaching India, where Ayurvedic treatment brought back light into her life.
विश्व का कोई बड़ा देश ऐसा नहीं होगा जहां रोजमेरी का उपचार न हुआ हो, लेकिन रोजमेरी की आंखों में रोशनी वापस नहीं आई. आखिरकार उन्हें सफलता भारत में मिली, और वो भी आयुर्वेद उपचार के बाद. आयुर्वेद का उपचार किया गया और रोजमेरी की रोशनी वापस आ गई. वो आज देख रही हैं.
Rosemary's sister is also participating in the Global Summit as a traditional medicine practitioner. It was only after Rosemary regained her vision that she got to see her children for the first time.
Usually I would listen to them more, and I would maybe touch my daughters and I'd tell them how I love them and I hug them. But when I saw them for the first time, I was like, wow, it's like they looked even more beautiful to me. And then my family, the world just seemed more interesting.
The chief physician who treated Rosemary, Dr. Narayanan Namboothiri, described her condition as critical when she was admitted to the hospital.
Visibility, it was almost nil stage, and we started our rejuvenation therapies, first with some cleansing therapies and then some rejuvenation therapies, that to enhance the nervous system. She is continuing with the medications because it is quite complicated, risky case, and now still she is continuing with the medicines, and I hope she will improve further.
Rosemary has indeed emerged as a global brand ambassador of Ayurveda. With Meghna Dev, Bureau Report, DD India.
Right, moving on, PM Modi held a bilateral meeting with his Mauritian counterpart Pravind Jugnauth at Gandhinagar following the inauguration of the Global Ayush Summit. Now, India and Mauritius are united by history, kinship, culture, language and the shared waters of the Indian Ocean. The two leaders discussed the ongoing development partnership and cooperation in defense, capacity building and people-to-people exchanges. They also reviewed progress of a Metro Express project and a proposal for an Ayush Center of Excellence in Mauritius. And PM Modi took part in the Adi Jati Mahasammelan in Dahod, where he inaugurated and laid the foundation stone of development projects worth 22,000 crore rupees, that's $2.8 billion. The PM recalled his long association with the local tribals and credited their blessings for inspiring him to serve the nation wholeheartedly. My colleague Dheeraj Singh has more.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in the Adi Jati Mahasammelan in Dahod. Over 2 lakh people participated in the Sammelan. He laid the foundation stone of various development projects worth around 22,000 crore rupees. Prime Minister recalled his special connect with the tribal community of Gujarat.
गुजरात की ये पूर्व पट्टी, उमरगांव से अंबाजी, पूरा मेरा आदिवासी भाई बहनों का क्षेत्र, ये मेरा कार्य क्षेत्र था. आदिवासियों के बीच रहना, उन्हीं के बीच जिंदगी गुजारना उनको समझना, उनके साथ जीना, ये मेरे जीवन घड़तर के प्रारंभिक वर्षों में इन मेरे आदिवासी माताओं, बहनों, भाइयों ने मेरा जो मार्गदर्शन किया, मुझे बहुत कुछ सिखाया, उसी ने आज मुझे आपके लिए कुछ न कुछ करने की प्रेरणा मिलती रहती है.
Prime Minister also inaugurated projects worth over 1,400 crore rupees, including the Dahod District Southern Area Regional Water Supply Scheme, constructed on the Narmada River Basin, worth around 840 crore rupees. Prime Minister also inaugurated 5 projects of Dahod Smart City, worth around 335 crore rupees. These projects include Integrated Command and Control Center building, storm water drainage system, sewerage works, solid waste management system and rainwater harvesting system. Under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, benefits worth 120 crore rupees were provided to 10,000 tribals of Panchmahal and Dahod districts. Prime Minister also inaugurated a 66 kV Ghodia substation, panchayat houses and Anganwadis.
जिन परियोजनाओं का आज उद्घाटन हुआ है, उनमें एक पेयजल से जुड़ी योजना है और दूसरी दाहोद को स्मार्ट सिटी बनाने से जुड़े कई प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं. पानी के इस प्रोजेक्ट से दाहोद के सैकड़ों गांवों की माताओं बहनों का जीवन बहुत आसान होने वाला है.
Prime Minister also laid the foundation stone for manufacturing of 9,000 HP electric locomotives at a production unit in Dahod. The cost of the production is around 20,000 crore rupees. It will provide direct and indirect employment to over 10,000 people. Foundation stone of various projects of the state government worth around 550 crore rupees was also laid. Prime Minister Narendra Modi concluded his 3-day Gujarat visit amid the tribal belt of his home state, ensuring development reaches all regions equally. With Dheeraj Singh, Bureau Report, DD India.
And now to the other big story we are tracking on Newsnight. Trade and investment and defence and security will top the agenda of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's visit to India. His visit was cancelled twice before because of the pandemic. Now, ahead of his visit, Johnson tweeted that he will seek to deepen the long-term partnership between India and the UK. Johnson described India as a major economic power and the world's largest democracy. India, he said, is a highly valued strategic partner for the UK in these uncertain times. More in the next report.
Boris Johnson will become the first British Prime Minister to visit Gujarat when he lands in Ahmedabad Thursday morning. It will also be his maiden visit to India as the UK Prime Minister. Johnson will spend the day in the city before reaching New Delhi in the evening for the second leg of his 2-day visit. He will be accorded a ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan and hold bilateral consultations with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday. The Indian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said India and the United Kingdom enjoy a long and historical relationship which was elevated to a comprehensive strategic partnership during the India-UK Virtual Summit in 2021. The Prime Ministers will review implementation of the Roadmap 2030 and set their vision for further intensifying cooperation across the full spectrum of bilateral ties. They will also exchange views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. India and the UK have a strategic partnership since 2004. Recently, UK Foreign Minister Liz Truss visited New Delhi for talks with External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar. India and the UK are negotiating a free trade agreement. The UK is the largest inward investor in India. The total investment is to the tune of nearly $29 billion. Bureau Report, DD India.
In other news, curfew continues in the southwestern region of Rambukana in Sri Lanka as protests refuse to die down in the crisis-stricken country. Several persons were killed and scores injured on Wednesday in violence after the police opened fire at unarmed anti-government protesters demonstrating against the latest fuel price hike. The next report has more.
Sri Lanka is facing a major political, economic and health crisis. The protests have become a daily affair. On Tuesday, Sri Lankan police fired live ammunition to scatter protesters. In the process, one person was killed and more than a dozen injured.
We can't make ends meet. We have no electricity, we don't have gas, the price of rice has skyrocketed. We can't make ends meet, so we have no choice but to go out on the streets. We took to the streets to throw this government out.
They are facing severe difficulties because of the fuel prices are going up, one thing. And the scarcity of the fuel in the market, and the amount that they get also very less. Okay, 20 litres for the small boats.
Former Chief Justice of Sri Lanka, Sarath N. Silva, called the island country's government a total failure.
There's a total failure of the government mechanism. The ministers have resigned. President is calling people to take up office of ministerial positions. They take up, next day resign. So there is no confidence, there is no purpose. In any event, under the constitution, if a motion of no confidence is passed, once again the thing turns over to the president.
The country sought rapid financial assistance from the International Monetary Fund to ease a worsening economic crisis. The International Monetary Fund has asked cash-strapped Sri Lanka to restructure its huge foreign debt before a bailout program could be finalized. Sri Lanka opened talks with the IMF in Washington this week after announcing its first ever default on external borrowings.
No, there's no money, there's no foreign exchange. It's a question of dollars, it's a shortage of dollars. Because of dollars, there's no medicine, there is no fuel. As far as food is concerned, the policy of not allowing fertilizer other than organic fertilizer has brought the food production down.
Earlier, Sri Lanka's finance minister had said the country will need about $3 billion in external assistance within the next 6 months.
I feel if we can, I mean, the numbers are still being worked out.
Yeah.
I just taken over a day or two ago. But the rough figure is probably we need about 3 billion infusion during the next 3 to 6 month time from now to 3 to 6 months for us to meaningfully come out of it.
Demonstrations have raged across the South Asian island country of 22 million people for weeks, voicing anger against the government's mishandling of the economy that has led to shortages of essentials and prolonged power cuts. In the commercial capital Colombo, protesters demanding the ouster of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa rallied with flags and signs on Tuesday. With agency inputs, DD India.
Right, let me now bring you up to speed on the Ukraine-Russia conflict. The battle for Mariupol appears to be nearing a crucial peak after months of fighting that's seen untold numbers of civilians trapped and killed. As fighting raged in the country's east and south, the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, reached Kiev. Hours ahead of Michel's arrival, the US said Ukraine had recently received fighter planes and spare parts to bolster its air force.
Fighting in Ukraine shows no signs of abating, with both sides refusing to strike a conciliatory note. The Kremlin accused Ukraine on Wednesday of going back on commitments it had made during peace talks and said this was having bad consequences for the negotiations.
The Ukrainian side repeatedly steps back from its earlier commitments and words. It changes them constantly. Now we have conveyed to the Ukrainian side our draft document, which contains clear wordings. The ball is on their side and we are waiting for their response.
On the other hand, Russian Ministry of Defense stated that Russia has been continuing to attack Ukrainian military targets and Russian forces have strengthened their offensive in East Ukraine, with troops of both sides fighting fiercely in Luhansk. According to Russian media, Russia's armed forces deployed in Donetsk have started strikes in Azovstal iron and steelworks plant in Mariupol, an important port city. Meanwhile, a Ukrainian presidential advisor said on Tuesday that Russia had begun hitting the steel plant with bunker buster bombs hours after an ultimatum by Russia to Ukraine passed. Russia had given ultimatum to Ukrainian soldiers to surrender and leave the facility in return for a promise to spare their lives. According to reports, about 120 civilians living next to Azovstal steelworks left via humanitarian corridors. Speaking on the plight of people in Mariupol, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the situation in the city remains as tough as possible as Russia urged Ukrainians in the besieged port to lay down arms.
The situation in Mariupol remains as tough as possible without any changes.
Russian troops block any attempts to organize humanitarian corridors and save people. Our people, the local residents who are in the hands of the occupiers, they try to deport or even instead working with its armaments industry and other nations to send more. Scholz is facing growing frustration at home as well as abroad with what critics say is his lack of leadership on Ukraine.
Amid the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, the charred facades of shelled residential buildings and burnt-out cars could be seen in drone footage captured in Mariupol on Tuesday. The port city in the southeast of Ukraine has been under siege for nearly 8 weeks, and residents are living without regular water, electricity and gas supplies. People could also be seen at makeshift market, buying food and other necessities, as well as charging their mobile phones from generator for approximately $1.35. As Russia pushed ahead with its new offensive targeting eastern Ukraine, US, UK, EU agreed to impose more sanctions on Moscow on Tuesday. In response, Russia has said it will not be intimidated by any Western sanctions and is determined to achieve its goals in Ukraine.
Creating such an anti-Russia situation in Ukraine has put Europe in an extremely difficult position. Illegitimate sanctions that have been declared against Russia, restrictions on Russian energy resources, all these increase Europe's dependence on the United States. And where there is economic dependence, there will be political dependence.
Expressing its support to Ukraine, Pentagon said Ukraine's partners have provided additional military aircraft and parts to repair others in Kiev's arsenal that were damaged or inoperable.
I would just say, without getting into what other nations are providing, that they have received additional platforms and parts to be able to increase their fleet size, their aircraft fleet size. I think I'd leave it at that.
Defending his country's commitment to secure Ukraine arm amid growing criticism, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said Germany will continue to support Ukraine militarily, although it has practically maxed out the weapons it can deliver from its own stocks and is instead working with its armaments industry and other nations to send more. Scholz is facing growing frustration at home as well as abroad with what critics say is his lack of leadership on Ukraine. Every day, US and its allies are slapping sanctions after sanctions on Russia and supplying military aid to Ukraine, but the impact is not seen on Russian motive. Only the Ukrainians are bearing the brunt of this deadly war. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And amid the ongoing war with Ukraine, Russia has expanded its nuclear arsenal by test launching its Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile. Following the test launch of the missile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said it would give Moscow's enemies something to think about. Putin was shown on television being told by the military that the missile had been launched from Plesetsk in the country's northwest and hit targets in the Kamchatka Peninsula in the Far East.
Уважаемые товарищи, я поздравляю вас с успешным пуском межконтинентального.
Dear comrades, I congratulate you on the successful launch of the intercontinental ballistic missile Sarmat. This is the big momentous event in the development of the Russian Army's advanced weapon system. The new complex has the highest tactical and technical characteristics and can penetrate all modern anti-missile defenses. These truly unique weapons will strengthen the combat potential of our armed forces, reliably ensure Russia's security from external threats, and provide food for thought for those who, in the heat of the frenzy's aggressive rhetoric, try to threaten our country.
Заставит задуматься тех, кто в пылу оголтелой агрессивной риторики.
All right, take a look now at some more international news in our World Wrap segment.
The United Nations Refugee Agency said on Wednesday the number of Ukrainians fleeing abroad since Russia began its attack on Ukraine on the 24th of February has passed 5 million. Millions more are internally displaced within the country. Drone footage shot at the start of the conflict showed queues of cars for miles as Ukrainians tried to escape the violence. Most are women, children and the elderly, as men under the age of 60 have been stopped from leaving by Ukrainian authorities. 6 Rohingya refugees from Myanmar, including 2 children, have died after being hit by vehicles on a Malaysian highway as hundreds fled an immigration detention center where a riot broke out early on Wednesday. The Immigration Department in a statement said a total of 582 Rohingya escaped the Sungai Bakap temporary immigration detention camp in Northern Penang state by breaking down doors and barrier grills, though 362 have since been rearrested. A British judge on Wednesday sent the case of Julian Assange to Interior Minister Priti Patel, who will decide whether the WikiLeaks founder should be extradited to the United States over the release of confidential US documents. The extradition order must now be signed by Patel, after which Assange can try to challenge the decision by judicial review. At least 4 people have died and others were missing after a probable methane explosion in a coal mine in southern Poland on Wednesday. The probable explosion at the coal mine in Polowice happened shortly after midnight at a depth of 1,000 meters. A total of 42 miners were in the area at the time. Rescue teams searched for bodies washed away in South Africa's eastern KwaZulu-Natal province on Wednesday after horrific floods have devastated the area and killed at least 448 people. Thousands of soldiers have been deployed to the province to assist with rescue missions and transporting aid. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And with that, it's a wrap. But news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.